Welcome, rising 7th graders, to our summer parts of speech review. So this presentation reviews the parts of speech, and by the end, we hope you feel confident with nouns, pronouns, verbs, adjectives, prepositions, and adverbs. We're going to continue to study the parts of speech during the school year, but here's what we would like to make sure that you know for the first week of school. We hope that none of this is new information to you and that you have some good recollection of it from elementary school. So the first part of speech that we're going to start with is nouns. So what is a noun? It's a person, place, thing, or idea. Have Katniss Everdeen, a beautiful beach, beautiful shoe, or maybe the idea of love like the monkey has for his banana. Nouns also often act as the subject of a sentence. A subject is who or what the sentence is about, and often that's a noun. Now, when we classify nouns, we can group them into the categories of common or proper. I want you to look at these examples and see if you can find the rule for what makes a noun common versus proper. Girl is a common noun. Megan is proper. Class is a common noun. English 7 is proper. Dog is a common noun. Golden retriever is proper. Virginia Beach, proper. Florida, proper. Beach, common. Vacation, common. So here's the rule. Common nouns refer to general people, places, things, or ideas. Notice that word general is bolded. This is because on the opposite end, proper nouns refer to specific people, places, things, or ideas. It's helpful to think of proper nouns as the names of nouns. So if nouns have a specific name, they are proper. And this is very important when we write because we want to make sure that we designate that a noun is proper by capitalizing the first letter of the word. With common nouns, we do not capitalize the first letter, unless, of course, it begins a sentence. So I want you to look at the words below and see if you can sort them into two categories, common or proper. Pause the video and then look at the answers on the next slide. So how did you do? Hopefully you noticed that our common nouns all start with a lowercase letter, whereas our proper nouns begin with a capital letter. Also notice that our proper nouns name specific people, places, things, or ideas, whereas our common nouns are more general. So this brings us to our next part of speech, which is pronouns. Have a look at this sentence. Taylor Swift sings songs. In that sentence, we have our subject, Taylor Swift, proper noun. Sings is our verb, and the word songs is our object. It tells us what she sings. But now notice this. We can replace the word Taylor Swift with she. And we can replace the word songs with the word them. So we go from Taylor Swift sings songs to she sings them. And this is because of pronouns. Pronouns are words that take the place of nouns, just like she physically took the place of Taylor Swift in the example before. They help to make our writing sound less repetitive because we're able to use pronouns in the place of using the same noun over and over. Now, some pronouns take the place of people, and in this case, it's really important that you pay attention to the gender so that you're using the proper pronoun based on if you have a boy or a girl. It's also important to keep number in mind when choosing pronouns. Some pronouns are singular. They refer to one person, place, thing, or idea. Plural pronouns refer to multiple, and some can be both. For example, the pronouns you or yours can be used to refer to one person or a group. So our next part of speech are verbs. A verb is a word that tells what a noun or pronoun is doing, and most verbs help us to show action. For example, Susie cried. In this full sentence that begins with a capital letter, ends with a period, and expresses a complete thought, our subject is Susie, and cried tells us what she did. How about here? The dog ran quickly. Ran tells us the dog's action. He scratched and growled. Here we have two verbs, scratched and growled. Now how about this sentence? The world of fun is in your hands. What's the verb in this sentence? This is kind of tricky. You might think there isn't a verb because there really isn't anything that you can do in this sentence. However, the verb is the word is. Now, is a very special kind of verb. We call is a be verb. Now, not in the sense of be like a bumblebee, but in the sense of be as in existing. And all of these forms of the verb be help us to show that something is in existence. We often use be verbs in order to link with adjectives in the sentence to show that something is existing in a certain way. Now, we're going to learn a trick to memorize all of these this year, but for now what you need to know is that when it comes to verbs, we have action verbs and we also have be verbs. So speaking of adjectives, that's our next part of speech. Adjectives are words that describe nouns or pronouns. They help us to answer one of 4 questions: what kind, which one, how many, or how much. An adjective typically comes before the noun it describes, or it can come after a be verb that links the subject to the adjective. So look at this first sentence. The smart student studies. The adjective smart describes student. But look at the second sentence. The student is smart. In this case, smart is coming after that be verb is to link student with smart. In both of these sentences, smart is an adjective describing the student. However, its placement in this sentence is a little bit different. So talking about placement or position in sentence, this brings us to prepositions. Prepositions are words that help to show the relationship or the position between one noun or pronoun in a sentence with another. How about this sentence? The firefighter ran into the burning building. Into tells us where the firefighter ran. It's showing the relationship between the firefighter and the burning house. The sentence would be very different if the firefighter ran away from the burning house, now wouldn't it? How about this? Lisa practices every morning before school. Before tells us when Lisa practices. And how about this one? Mark went to camp with his brothers for 3 weeks. With is showing who Mark went to camp with, his brothers, and for tells us, well, how long? 3 weeks. Now here's a list of common prepositions. Again, we're going to spend some time this year studying these and memorizing them, but don't worry, we have tricks for you for that. However, for now, you need to make sure that you know that prepositions show the relationship between one noun or pronoun in a sentence and another. And then there's our last part of speech, adverbs. Adverbs are words that describe verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. Did you hear that word describe in the definition? What other part of speech describes other words? If you said adjectives, you're right. Now, do you hear how adverbs and adjectives sound very similar with that AD beginning? It's a good way to remember that they both have essentially the same job and that they describe. What's different is that they describe different parts of speech. Now, adverbs also help to answer one of 4 questions. These 4 questions are where, when, how, or to what extent. Look at the examples here for how and to what extent. What do you notice that those 2 adverbs have in common? If you said that they both end in the suffix ly, you're right. And that's one way to recognize many adverbs. Many of them do end in ly, but there are also lots that don't. So that's why it's helpful to know those 4 questions. Now let's look at an example sentence, shall we? Yesterday, the very curious girl slowly walked outside. That one sentence contains 4 adverbs that help to answer each of those 4 questions. So let's think, which question helps to or which word, adverb, helps to answer the question of where? Outside. Where did she walk? Outside. How about when? Yesterday. She walked yesterday. How about how she walked? She slowly walked. And then we have to what extent. Now this is a little tricky. I'll give you a hint. This adverb describes an adjective. So which word in this sentence is an adjective? If we know that adjectives describe nouns or pronouns, let's find our noun. Girl is a noun. What kind of girl? The curious girl. And to what extent was the girl curious? She was very curious. All right, that brings us to the end of this lesson. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for reviewing your parts of speech. We look forward to doing more with these together this year in 7th grade English at Cooper.